Hello, Internet. This is Adobe Live, and I'm Renee Cherry. I get the express pleasure today of interviewing one of my favorite people. Her name is Lisa Carney, and she's not only a photo expert, but a Photoshop expert and a retoucher. So I'm so excited to talk a little bit about her career and her experience. Lisa, thank you so much for being here with me today.
Oh, honey, it's an absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Oh, well, can you tell me? I don't even know. We work together, but I don't even know anything about your background. So, what is it that originally got you into photo at all?
Oh, yeah. So that's really interesting. I actually originally wanted to be an illustrator, like a fine
Oh,
art illustrator, and my rendering skills were complete poop. And so the art school was like, nope, 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 nope. And so I went back. I was studying art history in Italy, and I did a photo portfolio. And so I ended up going to a school called Art Center, College of Design in Pasadena for photography, which was amazing. And I'm sure some viewers have had a similar issue when they go to art school and you get out and you owe what, $100,000 for your degree?
yeah, just a
Hmm?
little bit.
Just a wee bit of money. And when I got out of school in LA at that time, there were probably about 150 photographers in the Los Angeles region. And I had this huge debt. And I want to do portrait shooting and I want to do editorial portrait shooting, which is out of New York, not out of LA at the time. Didn't research that.
Oh,
Oops. So I was really lucky. Photoshop was just coming out and literally just coming out. Didn't even have layers back then. And I ran a camera rental house amongst my side gigs. And in between that and a service bureau I was managing was a movie finishing house where they
ooh.
did movie posters. And I was really good at Photoshop. I mean, it just kind of, it, it was instant for me, the love of Photoshop and the ability to understand it. So I just pivoted to Photoshop and it was the best decision I could have ever made. And I
Oh,
didn't look back.
this was at the beginning of like digital photography becoming a thing.
Yep,
And
exactly right.
you're telling me you pivoted out of college.
Yeah, I had to. It was a fiscal thing.
Wow.
Like literally it was a money thing. I can remember I went to a job interview once and it was vegetables on a seamless. And I remember this dude said, "You don't have any potatoes on a seamless," in my portfolio. But what I did have is I had a shiny metal shot, which if anybody's a photographer knows, shiny metal is the hardest thing you can shoot. Reflections all over the place. But because I didn't have a potato on a seamless, the guy was like, not sure you could do it. And I thought, oh, please no. So sometimes we have to pivot with careers. You go to school for something, you think you're going to do X, and it turns out either the industry changes or the industry wasn't what you expected, and you have to just pivot.
You
And I
know,
think we're in a time like that for pivoting. It's
we
time to pivot.
We are, and I think people really want to hear about that experience. Now, was it just the drive for like I got to pay these bills? That was it. You were just like anything, anything.
Yeah, sort of. I would say yes, but yes, and also, God, I hope I can explain this right. When I was shooting portraitures, I like to shoot people how they feel.
Yeah.
Okay, I really like shooting portraiture, not how they want to be portrayed necessarily. So I'm sure, Renee, you can imagine how hard that is in an industry. I lived in Los Angeles, Hollywood. Everyone wants to be beautiful. And I'm seeing sad people or frail people or weak people. So I also had a conflict, like with my art. Like what I wanted to create was not what my clients needed.
Right.
Yeah. So I pivoted, yeah, to something where I didn't feel like I was selling my soul to do the work.
Of course. Because if your soul is directly in, like, in this fight with what you have to do, you just can't do that. You can't do
Yeah.
that at all.
You can't sustain it, I don't think.
Oh, no, you
It's
can't.
unsustainable. Yeah.
Ooh, we're going to look at some of your photography.
Yeah, yeah. So this is actually my retouching work. So this is what I do. Some people may not know. I'm actually a finisher, retoucher, composite artist in the entertainment industry. Been doing it for a really long time,
So
but I love it. I absolutely love doing this work. I do theatrical, I do Apple. Anymore with streaming, it's kind of one big, huge party, if you know what I mean. It's no longer just theatrical or television or
no.
streaming. Yeah. And so I love what I do. It's photo heavy. As you can see, there's a lot of photography in there. I do not shoot these pieces as a general rule, but I understand what they're giving me or what to ask for. So we all speak the same language, which is really helpful.
Right, because you're a photographer by trade. So
Right, right, right.
you know the operation, you know cameras, you know all of that.
Yes. I
But
can speak to lenses and depth of field and exposure and
I'm sure
that
you
kind
can
of thing.
see it in the photos they hand over. You're like, this looks like a 40 millimeter.
Yep. Yep. And actually, most people don't know this, but in Photoshop, when you get a digital file and you open it, the information's probably in there in the under file. So you
In the
can actually
exit
see
data.
it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Woohoo.
Now, these are recent photos, right? Or, I mean, these are things that you did with modern Photoshop.
Yes. Yes.
Talk to me about some of the early days of using Photoshop
Ooh,
retouching. Like what
boy.
you said it didn't even have layers, which I know.
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. So if you can map, this is really interesting, Renee. No one's ever asked me this question. So we had to use channels. We'd have to save separate files and use channels as selections. It was really quite complicated at the beginning, which is why I'm a channel chopper, as we like to call ourselves. So when I'm masking, I still use channels because I used it back in the old days.
So you are pulling like the red, blue, and green channel for masks.
Yeah, to make masks. Exactly right. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. It was a long time ago. It was great. I mean, thank goodness layers came about and changed everybody's lives. But that technology stuck with me.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
So you moved from you worked at this entertainment house, and then you
Yeah.
also became a beauty retoucher. Is that true?
Yeah, well, you know what's interesting about that? That's with the retouching. So I do yeah, I definitely do beauty retouching 100%. And I think what happens with any industry or any career, you find what you're good at,
Yeah.
right? And I'm good at beauty. I mean, it sounds egotistical to say, but I can do it. And so I feel like I'm known in the industry as someone who's going to do a job that's got a lot of faces and a lot of beauty. I'm not the explosion gal. Now I can do it, but I'm not that. If it's a horror film, there's a lot of limbs cut off. They're not going to call me. In fact, don't call me. I tried to do a Walking Dead poster once, and I was like, oh God, I can't do this. No, or Saw. No, don't call me. No, that's not my job.
I don't know.
Uh, yeah, and I do product work too, which is not unlike
Oh,
beauty, to be honest. It's
oh,
very similar.
am I looking at the pre-photo and then the after?
Yes. Well, and you know
Oh,
what? If I could take a minute to shiny squirrel you,
yeah.
this is all about pivoting. So this is a client of mine who I love very dearly, Meaningful Beauty, and they give me these really bad photos sometimes that they need fixed, not their fault. They just have a bad product. And I said, hey, why don't we render these? Why don't we not do them in photos?
Oh,
And
yeah.
I collaborated with Chris Converse, and we used Substance 3D, and we actually rendered these in 3D.
Whoa. You could
Yeah,
have told me that was the same photo and I would have believed you. But
yeah,
that's 3D.
yeah. And
Wow.
this is about pivoting, like how you figure out how to pivot and do work with other people. And I don't. Here's the blessing about that too, y'all. I don't have to be the expert at that. I
Hmm.
don't have to be the expert at 3D. I can hire or contract out with other people, and then I can add my expertise, which is Photoshop, because I imagine there's a lot of folks out there right now who are kind of wigged out that they have to know everything.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
don't. You don't.
Why is it that we think we do? Because I suffer from that as well. Or I'll suffer from, I have to learn it myself when maybe
Yes.
it's not my skill. What do
Yes.
we do when we find ourselves doing this? Like, how do we
That's an
stop?
awesome question. So here's my wizened, seasoned opinion on this. First of all, your job listings are going to tell you you need to. And it's baloney. You do not need to know all of this. You can't. You cannot know all of these and be an expert at all of them. The
Oh,
person who can do that is a very tiny percentage of people.
yeah.
However, you need to know they exist. And I know the language of 3D. Like I know what to ask for, and I can glean enough information to be able to speak to whoever I'm hiring. And then I work in the community. I work really hard to make sure I know people who can do things.
Right.
So I know who to call or email and say, hey, I've got a job. Can you help me out? Or can you show me? Or can you teach me? Collaborating this year. Honestly, Renee, this is my year of collaboration. 2024 is all about collaborating, not me on my own.
That's so cool. And I feel like it makes you feel not alone because as a freelancer, you do get stuck in this place where you're just alone in your home doing the same thing over and over
Yeah.
again. And I would hope that would lend some sorts of like, I don't know, like togetherness.
Absolutely. And in fact, I'm here in Mexico working on a collaborative project with Jesus Ramirez, who
What?
everyone knows on Adobe Live, and
Yeah.
Chris Converse. And we're all working. I'm here on a job and
Oh,
we're collaborating. And yeah, you don't have to be alone. And it's so healthy. It's
oh,
so healthy to talk to other people and get other input and see how they're doing stuff. And yeah, it's
yeah.
inspiring.
Say hi to all of them because yeah, they are
Yeah,
Adobe
they're
Live
your
family.
peeps.
Are. Okay, now of course you've used Photoshop since the beginning, and you
Yes.
mentioned Substance as well.
Yes.
Those are essential tools that you use in your
Hmm.
toolkit. How else do you use anything from Adobe, like Photoshop or any other
Cool. Yeah. Let
software?
me let me switch to this page. So I'm back to shooting, which is
Oh,
amazing because my career is in such a state where I can shoot and do my art and still have my retouching career. And what ended up happening in this weird way is I discovered Lightroom. Now, I know Lightroom's been out for donkey's ages. And I was like, well, I don't need to know it because I know Photoshop. I don't. And I didn't know this whole world of mobile was going to pop up. In fact, let me, for just a second, if it's cool with you guys, switch to my website
of course.
so I can show you some stuff. So what ended up happening was I found Lightroom Mobile and discovered this whole world of Photoshop, pardon me, Lightroom Mobile, which meant I can go back shooting. And
Wow.
so, and not only can I go back to this world of shooting, but now I use ACR, Adobe Camera Raw, which is the
Yeah.
engine for Lightroom Mobile in Photoshop. So now, even when I'm doing movie posters or streaming files for Apple or Netflix, I start in Adobe Camera Raw, which is the exact same thing as Lightroom, which I learned when I was doing Lightroom Mobile.
So you're telling me you shot these with your iPhone?
Everything, I don't own a large sensor camera. Everything here is, God, I love these. I'm shooting, I'm in a big travel kick now and I'm back to editorial portraits. These
Wow.
are all shot on an iPhone, processed in Lightroom Mobile, 100%. I'm going to say I do about 90% of my processing on the phone.
Wow.
And then when need be, I go to the desktop version of Lightroom and clean it up.
Okay. And not Photoshop. Is there any reason why Lightroom becomes
I
your, is it just because you're already
I don't need to go to Photoshop for this. So what's interesting is I'm not doing for my personal work, for my photography language, let's call it, I'm not doing compositing.
Mm.
So now I'm doing some kind of heavy editing, but I'm not compositing. I only use Photoshop when I have to composite or do heavy lifting beauty retouching.
Wow.
And the masking in Lightroom is pretty amazeballs, but it's not perfect for all things. When you have to get sometimes pretty intricate, Photoshop's the way to go.
That's how I feel too, because I
Yeah.
also have dabbled in compositing and I tend to be a Photoshop heavy user, even though there's so many things I could just use Lightroom for. But
Yeah.
I get nervous when I can't like make a selection.
Yeah, well, and I'll tell you, if you haven't been on Lightroom Mobile, for folks who haven't been on Lightroom Mobile, go back and try Lightroom Mobile because the masking on this is exceptionally crazy good.
It's better.
So it is better. And I can't do Photoshop when I'm out on the go. And I don't know if y'all notice this. None of this is studio work. I am outside. I'm outside for everything or on a location that's not my location necessarily. And I want to work. Let me, in fact, go to this. I'll go to the landscape page here for a second. I
Wow.
want to see. So San Francisco, that Bay Area shot in the upper left-hand corner, that's heavily manipulated, but it's heavily manipulated while I'm sitting there on the bluff and I'm still there. That way I know I got the shot. That water shot of the Yucatan at Cancun on the right, I did all that editing while I was sitting in the beach
Oh my
because I don't
gosh.
want to leave and not
Well,
know that I got the shot.
and this is part of a question that I had is like, okay, so reality is not even real, but photos
Yeah.
and photos aren't real, right? But how do you strike a balance between the visual
Mm,
impact of the photo, but also maintain the integrity of the reality of the photo? You like what you're taking a picture of, right?
right.
Like,
Right.
where
Oh,
does that line go for
yeah. This is a great question, Renee. And it's a personal question. It's very personal. So what's the story you're telling? Who are you? What are you saying? What is the purpose of your work? So if you look at this page here, if you switch back for a second, you'll see this is really experimental stuff, all done on the phone,
you?
all of it, because I was trying to tell a story. So I'm working on a project called Paris at Night. So
Mm.
that shot of the swan is in at Versailles, full daylight shot, full daylight shot. The rooftops to the right, full daylight shot. But I don't want it to be a daylight shot. I'm trying to talk about something.
Right.
And yeah, this is important. I want to switch to something else for a second if you can. I'm going to
Of
go to
course.
my I'm sorry, you know me. I'm like, "Wah!" Let's
Sorry.
talk about something else here. Um, yeah, I mean,
Well, it
can't help
sounds like
myself.
you're trying to tell me that the story is what's important. So are we taking an editorial photo where reality is important, or are we telling a story about Paris at night? Like it sounds like
Yes.
that's you're going to a place where story is what's the point, not
Yeah.
the image almost.
Well, and yeah, so let's talk about this for a second. So this is a really important distinction. When I'm doing retouching and I'm doing my work for hire, I'm being hired by somebody else to produce something. That is a service for them. I will do what they want. And they dictate how much retouching. They dictate how far to go. They dictate their story. And certainly I will, especially with beauty work, I'll advise and I'll be like, hey, maybe we could leave some of this because this isn't so bad. We don't have to whitewash everything, so to speak. But it ultimately is not my decision.
Right.
This work, this is my decision. This
Mm.
is me. This is me telling a story. And Renee, I'll tell you too, the other thing is sometimes the story you need to tell is not a pretty story.
Yeah.
And that's where, for me, that's what dictates how I edit. So this is a project I did on grief. I had a really bad breakup years ago, and it really knocked me. It knocked me for a loop. And I feel like I had to vomit these out. I'm sorry, I know that sounds gross, but I
No,
was
it
just
doesn't.
like, oh, because I
No,
was in so much pain.
I think any artist understands that part of
Yeah.
what we create is to express ourselves. And sometimes the expression is not a good expression.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. I had I had a show in LA, a big show. Actually, I got to show these in New York at the World Trade Center, the new World Trade Center, and then in LA. And it was a pretty decent sized show. It was really kind of exciting. Talk about like exposing yourself gets you to move ahead in a way. But someone said, oh, did you sell any pieces? And I said, who wants a picture of grief on their wall? No, no, it's not about that. No one wants to look at some sad, you know, uh, destitute picture. And I was still thrilled I made it. I didn't make it for any other reason that other than I had to express something.
Right. But I mean, it's nice to make money sometimes. But and I would love these on my wall. I just have to say, I really did love the one
Oh,
with
you're
the
sweet.
flag, like the
Oh,
just
surrender. Yeah, that was all about
like yeah.
surrendering. Oh,
Ooh,
that's awesome.
that's
Now, I will tell you, this is Photoshop. So these are all shot on an iPhone
mhm.
and then composited in Photoshop. And then there's some 3D elements here, like that flag is a 3D element.
Hmm.
Um, the house is my house. That's my little, I have these dolls, these mannequin dolls. If you ever come to my house, you'll see them. They're everywhere. I have them covered in newspaper and all sorts of things. And I shoot those. So we used Adobe, I've used the Adobe tools, Photoshop, Lightroom, to create my images.
Yeah.
So it's cool. It doesn't matter. It's a movie poster or it's a self-expression. I use the same tools.
That's amazing. I love that you're combining so many different apps together. And it feels like you're really working where you're at. You're telling,
Yeah.
on your phone taking photos, so you're using Lightroom, and then you're on your computer compositing, so you're using Photoshop.
Yeah.
And it feels really available. Like you don't need to worry about where you're at.
Right. And it's interesting. And like if you look at this, so this is a project and talking about getting started, we talked a little bit about, how do you start this kind of thing?
Yeah.
You do the work. So my mom's in a retirement home and I was like, oh, I should go shoot these folks. Do you
Oh,
know some of these folks have not been shot? Pictures haven't been taken them in decades. They are not seen. These people are not seen. Now, my mom is seen because, my sisters and I live nearby and we're there two,
yeah.
3 times a week, but other people know this is all shot with an iPhone, edited in Lightroom. I was able to shoot 157 frames of these beautiful people, process them, and deliver them in 4 hours.
Wow.
And how easy I can give these people that we made these prints and they got to put them on their doors and they got to give them to family members if they had any.
Oh,
And I'm still learning. I'm learning Lightroom Mobile. I'm getting better at it and I'm contributing to my community. So this is another thing folks can do. Like go out and go to the old folks home and let these people be seen. Let them put their Sunday best on and and I'm going to just say till the cows come home, be seen.
yeah. Yeah. This is
Yeah.
so important what you do here. Like
Yeah.
this is just to not have photos of yourself, to not be able to give them out, or even just like not to be seen. Like you're letting these
Yeah.
people like have this glamour moment and it's just
Yeah.
beautiful.
And
Like,
talking to them and hi, and what's your name? And
oh
where are
man,
you from? And I see you.
this is a real defining moment I feel like. And
This was a big deal for me, and I didn't know it was a big deal. I was like, oh, I should take some pictures. And then I did it, and I was like, oh,
you
this
walk
was so
into
much more than the photos. This was so much more than the photos.
you walk into these things and you're like, this is going to be nothing. And then you're like, oh my
Right.
God, it's changed my life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you have
Yeah.
other moments in your career that you can think of that stand out like that?
I will say this one is the most recent one. And I will say, in all honesty, that grief piece, doing that grief thing, it changed my life. I mean, I was just trying to exercise some demons inside of me.
Yeah.
And then I ended up flying to Manhattan and going to a show and having a big show in LA. And I wouldn't have called that in a million years. I was just telling my story.
Wow.
So those are, those were kind of important. And I kind of want to take a second and reiterate also that it's the wizard, not the wand. And I know folks out there get really hung up on what are you shooting? And who do you have a Canon? Do you have a Nikon? Are you shooting with a 4x5? I've shot with all of them. I use this now. I use this mobile device. That's all I use. That's all I need. Heck, in there's a Holga camera in the middle. That's a toy camera. I shot pro jobs on a toy camera before. So folks shouldn't get hung up on the tech.
No.
It doesn't matter.
You'll hear people talk about the tech, and it's interesting if you've done it before. Like, oh, if you're saying, oh, I shot on Canon, you're like, oh, I know that experience. But it's not, you shouldn't get hung up in brands or even, lenses or anything, because you're right. It's all about the end product. It's about
what do you need to make your end product? Now, I have a really good friend of mine, Sarah Ford, who's a beautiful a designer in Hollywood, creative director, and she's back to film. She's shooting with a Hasselblad with film. Awesome.
Wow.
Awesome. Cool. Whatever you need to tell your story.
Yeah. Can you tell me about a memorable experience you've had with a project, maybe that just like left an impact on you? Is it, like just that you can't shake?
This is really interesting. So, projects as a whole in my industry are a little surface, if I just say the truth.
Well,
retouching and entertainment is not depth work for the most part. So I will say, unfortunately, a lot of the process for me can be a little jarring, like making someone who's 75 look like she's 35.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, we're not doing, I mean, I'll do it. I'm in service of my client, but for my work and what I'm going to do, no.
Do you think you always have to save your soul for your work?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, because I get to choose. Like, here's the thing. Like, one thing folks say, well, why are you that's over retouching? What idiot retoucher did that? Or this. And it's like, oh, we ain't deciding. The actors are deciding. The directors are deciding. The showrunners are deciding. The studio is deciding. I'm not deciding.
Right.
And I signed up for that. And I just know that. And for my work, I decide. So that's what it's reserved for. And I think it's really important that you know where you are in the food chain. Like, if I got all cranky pants doing retouching and telling people they were wrong, well, I wouldn't be working. That would be, and if that bothers me, then I shouldn't do that job.
And you see people do that. You see people sort of like not understand, like, you're just getting paid for this. Just do it.
Yeah. And if it bothers you, don't do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do another job. Rock on. Do another job. Now, does it not mean that I don't try to influence them? Yes, absolutely.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Tell me about any mentors or people that you really admire in the industry.
Yeah. So I will, it's interesting. I was on a podcast 100 years ago, not 100 years ago, a long time ago. He draws with Glenn Dews. And he had asked me that same question. And I no one had ever asked me that. And it sounds a little arrogant, but when I was coming up digitally, there weren't a lot of role models, especially for a woman. There weren't. Yeah. So I have influences, like artistic influences up the kazoo. But for digital work, I was in the front seat really with some other folks because I was new. Now for art, for photography, I'm going to show this real quick. I'm going to switch screens here. Jacob, don't mind me, honey bear. I'm just going over here. Vivian Mayer. I don't know if you guys know who she's a photographer. She's pretty cool. Joel Peter Whitkin's work really inspired me. So it's a lot of in-camera compositing.
Okay.
All in camera. And it's weird and it's crazy and it was really inspiring. for me.
So
Really
this is not even film compositing. So like in, like Ansel Adams actually did like burn
yeah.
and dodge and stuff, but this is in camera is what you're saying.
Well, I am at, there's a lot of darkroom technique for sure.
Okay. Okay.
For sure. But they are still lifes, if you will, with people.
Amazing.
Yeah. And this really inspired me. And here's why. This is storytelling. This
Right.
isn't pretty pictures. This is storytelling. This dude was telling some stuff. And that's what really interested me. Not just, can you take a pretty picture, but what are you saying?
Wow.
And I'm trying to think of what I have. Let me go to my site here for a second.
Yeah, please.
I mean, I'll tell you, like my editorial stuff, I think is a little weird, but it's because I'm telling stories. Yeah, I'm sorry. I feel like I'm beating that horse a little dead about keep saying telling stories, but this guy in Seattle was alone on his computer and he looked really lonely. This picture here in the corner. And yeah, what are you saying? What am I know I have obviously a bit of a romantic view of how I look at the world. I've been to a ton of protests and yeah, I mean, I hope I'm not wrong, but I feel like these look like they're saying something.
I think they are.
That picture with my mama and her grandson, my son, my mom's at the end of her days.
Wow. When I see a picture like this, it does tell, at least, I don't know that I say that it tells a story to me, but it makes me want to ask questions. And I think that's how I know there's a story there is that, who are these people? How are they related? Where are they going? Specifically the one with your mother, they're walking literally into the light. And wow, that's powerful.
Yeah. And that shot of my son in the bottom left-hand corner, he was down, man. He was going through some stuff.
Yeah.
And I think you can feel it. It's like, he feels heavy. This is, and then there's some people just want to take pretty pictures and that's cool too. Okay. It's all good.
Well, we need candy, but we also, the meat and potatoes of what life is about.
Yeah.
Well, you had some stuff you were going to show us in Photoshop, right?
Yes. Let me jump into Photoshop. So here's the thing. So we talked a little bit about storytelling and what are you trying to say? Yeah. And then there's, how do you do it? How do you say it? So I'm going to open up another file here real quick. Sure. Bear with me for just a momentito.
Take your time.
So there's a lot of really exciting stuff coming out in Photoshop right now. Were you going to say something, honey? I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, you're fine. I said it was a beautiful image.
Oh, cool. So new technology. And here at Adobe Live, we're really into talking about new stuff. So with basic retouching, this is just a standard image. And I hope on the screen folks can see this. So I just want to talk a little bit about the tools and what I use. Yeah. So with basic retouching, whatever you're working on. So if I am working on a story or a professional job, I like to clean it up and not have distractions. So all these hairs, there is the greatest tool in the world out here. And I don't know if y'all know it. It is the remove tool. It uses AI technology. And I literally set that tool up, go in there. I usually have a cup of coffee in my left hand. And I just go in. I'm on a different computer, so forgive me if this is a little clunky chicken here. Let me be on that layer. It helps if you're on the right layer. Just letting you know, really helps.
That's a little pro tip for all y'all.
Little pro tip, be on the right layer. And this tool, I hope folks can see this. I am literally just painting out the hair. Again, this is AI technology. And I just very quietly sit here and go through. It's actually remarkably fast. It may not look fast here, but this is crazy chicken fast.
Okay. Is this just for hair? What else could I use?
No, you could use it for all sorts of things. I don't think I have an image here that you would use it for, but you can use it for bigger spots. You can also circle an item.
Okay.
Lord willing, the creek don't rise. It'll work on that. Yeah, there you go.
Whoa.
So you can paint or circle. So the remove tool is one of those hidden gems that I think people don't think to use.
I didn't know about it.
Yeah, Photoshop has so many hidden gems that are amazing. Now, you can use the generative fill. Let me go to the lasso tool for a second and just click and drag. Okay. And hopefully everyone knows by now that if you use the generative fill, you want to make sure you have your contextual taskbar up, which is on the window palette at the very bottom. I happen to have mine up. Yep. And you can, when you have a selection, you type nothing, zero, nothing, nunca in, and just hit generate. And that will take out hair as well. So you can use that, but as you notice, a little slower, isn't it?
Takes some time, but where's
It
that
takes
other
some time.
tool? The remove
It,
tool?
yes, is faster. Now, here's the thing, and it also takes up one of your credits. So it will, those are things to consider. So I think what happens is we all get very seduced by the new stuff that's out and we think, oh, yeah, 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 yeah. Use the new thing. Use the new thing. But hang on. Sometimes the old horse in the barn is the one you want to pull out, right?
It's
So
totally true.
awesome. And then, so I want to show a couple of the things just about the beauty stuff for retouching. I use this every job. I use the remove tool every single job I use. It's probably my biggest heavy lifter. I mean, look at that. It's, excuse me one second.
It's amazing.
Fast and amazing. Then the next step I do is something called frequency separation. Now, frequency separation is a beauty technique. This is not fast. This
Okay.
is not easy.
Okay.
But people don't pay me because things are fast and easy. So I'm going to show you something real quick about that because I definitely do not have time to go over it in the class.
Okay.
However, because I love you all,
Oh,
I'm going to pull it up here real quick and hit play for a second. I have two places on my website at lisacarney.com that you will be able to find free online workshops or demos. So this fast portrait retouching will show you how to use that spot remove tool, the remove tool to clean this up super groovy fast. Again, it's at lisacarney.com and it's under free online workshops. And better than that, there is under the same window, basic frequency separation, and it'll 100% walk anyone through
wow.
this technique.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Yes. So hold on. I want to show you something else here. So can I take a second and just talk a little bit about process? Would that
Of
be
course you
okay?
can. Please, let's talk about
Awesome.
process.
Okay. So, and forgive me because I'm not quite aware of how much time we have left, but
No,
you
we're
keep
doing
doing it.
just fine. We got about 20
Awesome.
minutes left. Okay.
Perfect. All right. So for me, the ecosystem is the ecosystem. And what do I mean by that is I think folks get locked into it's one thing. Like I just work on my desktop or I just work on my laptop or I just work on my phone. No, babies, it's everything. And open yourself up to that, right? So for me, I use as many of these apps as I can. So right now I use Lightroom. I use Photoshop beta because I like the newer stuff coming out. Some folks don't like the beta. I love me the beta. I want to see the new stuff whenever humanly possible. I use Adobe Stock. I use Adobe Express and I use Firefly. Now, as of yesterday or day before, you can use Firefly inside Photoshop. And I'm going to talk about that in just a second here. So who cares? iPhone, Android, nobody cares. Nobody cares. All the same. Same. Nobody cares. Lightroom Mobile. Great. So I use Lightroom Mobile at the start when I shoot. 100% everything started with Lightroom Mobile. If someone provides me a file, then I use ACR, Adobe Camera Raw, inside Photoshop. So it's still the same as Lightroom. It's just you're accessing it in a different spot. I use Photoshop, and now anymore, I use more and more Generative Fill, and as of a couple of days ago, Firefly. So I like to do arty crap, arty stuff. So, gotta use your Photoshop for that. And I do a lot of campaigns for people for social, Lightroom Mobile or Adobe Camera Raw inside Photoshop. Same. Allows me to do this really quickly and easy. So this is a great tool for work, for producing income.
I just want to say these are really cohesive. And I know that that's the point because you're a pro, but I see it. I see the story in the
Good. Good. Thank you for saying that because that's the idea. You want to give branding, colored branding, and for different seasons. Yeah. All right. And then I like to do funky chicken stuff all on the phone so I can come up with different looks depending on what I'm looking to do.
Wow.
And so that's Lightroom Mobile, right?
Mm-hmm.
In Lightroom Mobile, you can do some pretty extraordinary stuff. So this is a shot. It's at used to be called Squaw Valley, Palisades, Tahoe now. It's what it's called. And for those of you who shoot on a mobile device, you can't catch snow. Cannot catch snow. Doesn't work. But what you can do is you expose for the highlights when you're shooting. So this shot looks pretty crappy on the left-hand side. It took 2 small moves in Lightroom Mobile to bring it back to where it was.
Really?
Yeah. So that's a pro tip number 2. When you're shooting on a smartphone, expose for the highlights and then develop for the shadows. Okay. So, for example, Chris Converse, our dear good friend Chris, this is part of the project we're working on. We're working together here on a project here. And I like to take this in Lightroom Mobile. And in Lightroom Mobile, You have mask. So with mask, I can, as you can see here, there's a vignette to darken the outside. I've sharpened him. I sharpened the eyes. I colored, it was going very green in the shirt. I'll show you something in 2 seconds on this. And I fixed the hand, but all on the phone. I mean, holy guacamole. So look at this edit. You'll see the before and after start playing here.
Oh, that is a huge difference.
Yeah. Yeah. All on the phone.
Do you always
Lightroom mobile.
shoot lighter then? Almost always shoot lighter?
I don't shoot lighter. I expose for the highlights, which means I actually shoot darker normally.
Oh, okay. That makes sense to me. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, don't be sorry. It's a weird term because it sounds like quite the opposite. And then what is the story you're going to tell? So, and I just want to show you a few backgrounds I generated in Photoshop just to show you what you can consider doing. I'm not saying these are good. So maybe the story is it's like a Hemingway-esque thing out in the beach. And these are done with generative fill in Photoshop.
Wow.
And again, it allows you to tell a different story. Should it be inside? Should it be messier? And I'll tell you, when you're shooting with people, especially if you're shooting people who are not accustomed to being photographed, who are not used to being part of the story, you may have to change what you do, right? So we do it in Photoshop. You decide. You decide. So I'll show you something else here. So Photoshop, here we go. Photoshop with generative fill. So sometimes these generative fills work a little hinky dinky. So I just wanted to show you in a way that I could demonstrate what I'm going to show you and see if we can get it to produce while we're doing a demo. I want to remind you the tools I was using for the retouching are right there, that remove tool. So anyone out there, take a screen capture of this right now if you were wondering what that tool is. There you go. And again, I use it, literally most of the heavy lifting is done with that darn little tool.
It's amazing.
Okay. I showed you these so you can get back to this. Sorry, little deck jockeying here.
The deck is do what it wants.
Yes. Yes. Well, they can email. If you all want it, just email me. I'll send it to you. Just reference the deck in the email. So when you're in Photoshop and you want to use generative fill, which I think can be amazing, you can do it for small parts, like for retouching, or you can do it for large parts, like the background. Well, there's something new. Pay attention, you guys. This took me a minute to find. It's brand new. It's that darn little button right there.
Okay.
So when you're on, it's that teeny little button. And what that means is you can load a source file now. This is really important. So what you can do is load a file up and say, match this file. And what I did, you'll see to the left of that, there's a little box there. Yeah. It's like a neon sign thing. I wrote beach. And it put a beach looking, look at the squares underneath that. The left-hand one, there's a little sunset.
I see it.
So you can actually make an image, and I'll open up this file real quick and talk about this. I just want to show you where to look, because this is where I got hung up. I couldn't find that box for a minute and I got frustrated. So I don't want you to be frustrated.
Thank you.
And this is what happens. So when you tap on that button, you can either load an image saying, I want a background that looks like this, or you can scroll in the gallery and pick something.
Oh.
So this is phenomenal. This is going to completely change my portrait work for sure. I can load my own images in.
That's cool.
I can load my own look and my own style and my own, that grief series, for example. Oh. I could load that in and put things in myself. So this is going to change the game. And you can still type. So as I said, look at that. That's a bar, like a weird room with lights. But I typed beach in and it gave me a beach that looked like that scene.
It was all like neon and beach.
Yes, crackers. I have another box to show you. This box, can y'all see this on the bottom left-hand side? Awesome. This lets you generate from Firefly directly into Photoshop.
Oh, it's on the bottom of the toolbar.
It's on the bottom. It took me forever to find it. I know it just came out yesterday, the day before, but I was like, where is that? That is where it is. So I want you all to know. And that allows you to, let me see if I have a screen here for this. I don't. I'm going to show you something else real quick too. Okay. I'm going to show you what I'm going to show you, and then I'm going to show you these three things because I think it'll be easier once we're in the program. So our good friend Erin Nace, who was on Adobe Live yesterday, we love it. I think it was yesterday. Yes, yesterday. I love Erin. This is a shot of Erin here in the bus in Mexico. Well, I didn't want Erin in the bus in Mexico because who wants a photo of bus? Nobody. I wanted a beach bright at magic hour with the low angle.
It looks
and
so
there's
good.
Erin. Isn't it amazeballs?
Yes, because I see you know, what's crazy is that even in the bus, the lighting is really good. Like
Well,
the
that's
way it's reflecting on his hat. And it doesn't like the bus photo looks fake to me now.
right. See, isn't this fascinating? So I will tell you. So Aaron was sitting there and we're yammering about whatever we're yammering about. And I was like, oh God, look at the light on him. So I'm super obnoxious and I'm like, sorry, take your picture, sorry. And then I was looking at it and I thought, what did that light look like to me? Oh, it looks like he's sitting on the beach and the sunset's going down behind him. Wouldn't that be much nicer than a bus?
And so
And look what a good job it did.
you use that little button and I see it says beach, bright at magic. Yeah.
Hour at and comma
Low
low angle.
angle.
Now,
Low angle.
I'm gonna
Wow.
for all my dyslexic friends out here, yeah, this is the one issue. It's typing for me and spelling correctly, slightly problematic, but I get there eventually. And then I want to show you one more thing about this.
Okay.
Russell Brown, who I love dearly, has these filters, these generative fill filters, so I can make it a watercolor if I wanted.
Oh,
And they're generative fill. So let me show you where you guys can get those, and then I'll show you the other stuff.
okay.
So it looks like this. It'll produce a whole bunch of different looks and you pick. So I picked two and painted the mask in on one of them to get his nose back. I'm not saying this is great art. This is just experimenting. So for all of you who don't know him, Russell Brown is amazeballs and he is like the creative director for Adobe Photoshop. If you look him up on Facebook, Russell Preston Brown, and you look for this picture of this gal, he has this action file you can download for free. He's got a tutorial on Vimeo. Take a screen capture of this, you guys, so you can find this.
Wow.
And you can do a sketch, you can do oil painting, you can do all kinds of stuff, and it's all 100% free. And he would appreciate it if you posted it, tag him on the post so he can see what's being created out there. Okay.
Honestly, Russell's worth a follow. He's always got tips and tricks and
Oh my heavens. Just you know what, Russell, do you know that portrait series of the old folks that I did? I was able to do that.
That one.
Well, because he showed me these lights you can use to trigger with your iPhone. That was him. And I was like, oh. So let me switch to Photoshop here and I can show you, we could take a look at some stuff, okay?
Please.
All right. So I'm going to cancel that one and let's look at her. So here's our beach lady, right? Yeah. So here's my gal, right? There's the original. And I'm going to just delete that. This is the beach shot I did. And I have 3 variations that it gave me. And I'm going to show you how I did it real quick. Okay. I just want to show you once again what it is. So this is the Firefly Generative Fill inside Photoshop right now. I'm just going to make another one real quick.
Yeah, please.
Little button in the upper left-hand corner. So you can pick anything. Now I'm just going to experiment. I have no idea what this is going to look like. That's part of the fun or frustration. Let's do this one right now. So that's going to be my reference image and it's a futuristic city, but I'm going to say beach and let's just see what it does. I have no idea if this is going to work.
I have no idea either, but I'd like to say thank you for using your credits for us. Like this is
my pleasure.
This is very, very appreciative of all your time here.
Well, and you know, if I could circle back to what I should do it, I'm going to do it underneath. Well, I did do it underneath. I'm just going to go ahead and delete this. I don't think this works for this image.
Right, because the colors are different.
Yeah, but this one did because when I clicked on that image matched the coloring of her. Wow. So when you guys are experimenting, try to see if you can, I'm going to show you another trick. Pick something that's in the realm. So I'm going to do beach copy because I don't want to ruin it. Always make a copy, save yourself. I'm going to replace the image. Actually, you can, replace image. That's where you load your own stuff in.
Okay.
Super important. You just pick it off. But I'm going to pick what they have here. So I'm going to pick this one. I'm still going to say beach. And I'm going to hit generate. And let's see what we get. So here's what I've been doing lately in the spirit of pivoting and experimenting. Well, I struggle with generative fill. I struggle with the idea of AI. I know I have to learn it.
Yeah.
I know I have to learn it. Yeah. So, well, this is interesting. This, I feel like, ooh, that's interesting. Wow. So I actually am using it currently to get ideas, not necessarily to generate finished work.
Right.
But also to get ideas.
Well, you know, what I love about what Adobe and the team is doing with Firefly is that they're putting us in control of the
yes.
Right.
Yes.
And I think all creatives need to have that because we want to do the work, but we want it to assist us.
Exactly right. Forgive me for jumping around here, but I want to show you a couple other things. 100%. You want to be able to be in control and not feel like you're stealing stuff too, by the way. And
Oh,
the loading your own image, mwah, dear God,
yeah,
amazeballs.
right.
So I want to circle back on something if we have enough time.
We
Do you
do.
remember I said I did this all on mobile,
Yes, I do
right?
remember.
Shot it all on mobile. My masks were all on here. I'm on my desktop now. I'm double clicking on a DNG. I export a DNG from my phone to my desktop.
Okay.
Every one of those masks I made are sitting here. So
Holy shit.
right, this means I am on my desktop now and I can go in and look at everything I need to do on the desktop and then open this image. And now I'm in Photoshop
And you've already done all this work.
and I already started it. It's a smart object. So if you guys can see that, it's a smart object. So I can, if I, oh gosh, I really wanted to do one more thing in Camera Raw. Go back to Camera Raw. This is the same engine. Like, let's say I want to change that vignette. I'm going to make it even darker behind him, let's just say.
Nice.
And let's say I don't want it to affect his body. I can subtract it from him. So once you learn either Adobe Camera Raw or you learn a, Lightroom, you know it. I know it. I'm here. I'm happy. I know what I'm doing. I don't have to feel weird about it. And I can just hit OK, go back into Photoshop.
Yeah.
Right. And so we were talking about that generative fill stuff, right?
Yeah.
So I can select subject. That's going to select him, right?
Mhm.
But I don't want him. I want to do a background. I'm going to just real quickly add to my, because I want to keep that table because I think that table looks pretty decent.
There's something about having it dark that's kind of nice.
Right?
Like there's a
Right?
spotlight on him.
Yeah. So he's the hero of the story. Now I'm going to inverse Command Shift I that selection. So now I have the background selected. And now I'm going to go to Generative Fill and I'm going to move my microphone just a minute. And I'm going to say beach, magic, hour, low angle. Let's just see. Beach, low. I want to say low angle because I want the horizon line low. No idea if this is going to work, but this is me experimenting. This is me using a Lightroom mobile, coming back to my desktop, but still being able to adjust anything I want to, because you can go all the way back to 0, 0 on Camera Raw, back to exactly how I shot it with no adjustments.
You're giving permission to people to play around, which I think is a beautiful thing because, whoa, it's so dark.
Isn't it cool?
Ooh. I think
and you can keep regenerating. You keep changing other things. Now, what's interesting is this doesn't look like the thing I had in the sample, right?
No.
Same cues, same prompt.
Wow.
So that's the other part of this. This is flexible. And if I really didn't want it to be flexible, that picture right there on the top,
yeah,
reference image, that's where you want to pick a reference image. And then it'll be more
accurate.
More accurate. That's a great way of saying that.
Well, Lisa, this is incredible. You really do give permission for everyone to play around, you know?
Yeah, why not, right?
This incredible background, all of this incredible experience in the industry, and you're using the latest tools right here, which is just so inspiring.
Came out yesterday. I mean, yesterday, right?
Amazing. We have about 5 minutes left, just a little bit over 5 minutes. So I just want to let you know that so that you can wrap up or show us anything else that you wanted to communicate today.
Yeah, well, I wanted to let people know because I know this is basically a teaser kind of thing. Yeah. So I am coming out with what I'm calling Just Travel, and it's all mobile photography, how to, Lightroom heavy, super cool. Lightroom heavy, but also concepting, like talking about how do you shoot, what are you looking for. I am here in Mexico with Jesus Ramirez, and we're actually filming a masterclass on movie poster production. And it is everything. It is how does the industry, like what's the food chain in the industry? How do you design a poster? What are you looking for? What's the visual vocabulary of this industry? So for example, if it's a comedy, it's light. If it's sci-fi, what colors do you pick? What is the visual vocabulary? Right. So if anyone's interested, there's a little button there on my website that says, hey, get notified, and we'll let you know. Jesus is amazing. He's absolutely amazing. Yes, he is. So we collaborate all the time. He works with me, and I love him dearly. And he's just, I don't know anybody who knows more about Photoshop than him, frankly, if I say the truth. It galls me to say that, but it's true. The other thing is there's an absolute free Lightroom workshop coming up called the Lightroom Virtual Summit. I think this is number 5 or 6 we've done. There's a QRC code there. So it's qrco.de/Lightroom_LVS. You guys can see that. Take a screen capture of that. Absolutely free. And it's coming up May 20th and 24th. There's a gazillion teachers, a gazillion classes, and it's all Lightroom. So it's classic, Lightroom desktop, and Lightroom mobile. So a lot of those techniques I was just showing you, you will see there. And yeah, so that's fun.
If you're out here watching this and you have not gotten started already, this is your sign. This is your sign that there's so much free content that Lisa has provided to you that you can get out and learn just with your iPhone. Lisa's a professional and she's doing it just with her iPhone and mobile. You can do this too. So
yeah, and you could build these comps. So I will tell you the the rhinoceros picture in the upper right-hand corner of the screen here, which is for Apple. I use Gen Fill to make that grass.
Wow.
So these are tools that are just coming out and getting used. The CBS picture of the I Love Arabashi. I always say it wrong. It's on CBS Paramount, the flower field.
Yeah.
Gen Fill.
Amazing.
Gen Fill.
Amazing.
The buddy games on the left from CBS. I use Gen Fill to fix the background.
Wow.
And the arrows came from a program called Pixel Squid. I just want you to see kind of what real stuff gets made with. So what else is there? That room for the young Sheldon, which you guys may not know that. Jesus built up that whole background for me. CSI, we collaborate. I was mentioning earlier about collaborating, right? Yeah. I collaborate. I don't try to do everything by myself. I get help. That CSI, Jesus built that room. The Good Sam, Jesus built that room. Yeah.
I feel like you got to get out there. You got to collaborate. You got to go to lisacarney.com and sign up for these free workshops.
Yeah.
And be sure to follow her on social media too, because she's an endless delight. Well, Lisa, that's just about all the time we have today. Thank you so much for sharing your
this was so much fun. It really was.
So much fun to talk about Photoshop and Lightroom and Gen Fill and Firefly. And oh my gosh, thank you for the tips and tricks. So coming up next here on Adobe Live, we've got the weekday edit with Arabella and Ellie. I'm so sorry that I'm going to mess up that name, but stay tuned because Adobe Live is not over. There's going to be a show coming right after. But for now.
Awesome. Love you guys.
Bye.